According to the Rasmussen poll, support for the president, job approval rating, so to speak, is 35% among African Americans as recently as last week. The Rasmussen poll, if you're not familiar with it, was the only poll that got the 2016 presidential election correct. And frankly, I wasn't surprised because I've been a bit of a political nerd since the early 80s. I was a big Ronald Reagan supporter when I was a teenager. And Rasmussen has always been a very good poll. Other polls, Emerson College poll is another legitimate poll, has African American approval rating at 34%. Gallup poll is at like 24%. PBS NPR has them at 21%, which is quite astounding when you consider he only got 8% of the African American vote in 2016, and the media has given him a 24/7 onslaught of negative reporting, building the narrative that Trump is a racist and his policies hurt African Americans. So in this video, I'm going to lay out the reasons African Americans support him, like tangible things that he has done, and tangible things Democrats have done, and I'm going to give you my analysis of the whole race as it's shaping up. But as far as these polls go, I think it's even more than 35%, because I think what we have going on is what they call the Bradley effect. It's named after a mayor, I think back in the 80s, who was running. It was an African American mayor of Los Angeles, was running for the governor of California. And all the polls showed him that he was going to win, and he lost. And political scientists coined the phrase the Bradley effect. And what they said was they believed that people on the phone didn't want to seem racist, so they said, yeah, we're going to support Mayor Bradley. I think the reverse is happening, and I call it the Trump effect. People are embarrassed because it's not politically correct with the way the media has built this narrative about Trump being a racist, so they feel like they're going to betray their race, being an Uncle Tom, if they say they support Trump. But just being a blue-collar guy and seeing men on the street, hard-working African-American men that I know personally, they know what's going down. They're not dumb. And I think this is going to be a transformational election where the Republican, for the first time in a long time, is going to get the majority of the African American vote. And I'm going to give you specific reasons why. Number one, prison reform. Van Jones has said recently that was the greatest thing that any president has done in 50 years for the black community. Basically, President Trump has done more for the black community than the last presidents in the last 50 years. And if you're not familiar with who Van Jones is an African-American Democrat strategist. Now, of course, he works for CNN. But he was a special advisor to President Barack Obama in his first term, only for a short time, because it came out that he was a communist. He believed in communism, and he admitted it. So for political expediency, Obama asked him to resign. And you know what? Guys like Van Jones and Bernie Sanders who admit to who they really are, I have to give them respect because they're honest. You know, I disagree totally with communism and what Van Jones thinks the government should be doing. Totally disagree with Bernie Sanders and socialism and what the government be doing. But I give both of those guys props for being honest, because most Democrat leaders are on the spectrum from socialism to communism, but they won't admit it. They will never admit it. So I give these guys props for being honest. And Van Jones was so upset. You can Google it. It was so dramatic that you could Google it on YouTube. His reaction when he knew President Trump won the election in 2016. He nearly came to tears. He looked like he was literally going to cry. And he said, "This is a blacklash. This is racist America. That we're mad we had a first black president, so they all came out to vote for Trump." And I pointed out in a video back then for a different channel I had, Rob, blue collar guy, that he was mistaken. That the reason Trump won was he won the same voters that Obama needed to win in the Midwest. Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. That's the only way a Republican can win. He's got to lock down those states. And Trump was able to do it. And these were the same people that voted for Obama. So he was mistaken then, but he was correct when he recently said President Trump did more for the black community than any other president in the last 50 years. And of course, all the liberal trolls attacked him, and they thought he betrayed the party, but he was being honest. He's like, listen, I disagree with 90% of what the president does, but when he's right, he's right. And where credit is due, I'm going to give credit. And he's giving him credit for the prison reform bill. And if you're not familiar with it, I'll just briefly summarize it. It unequally affected black men in this country. It's basically 3 strikes you're out. If you had 3 drug offenses, you go to jail for life. And the way prosecutors would use it was they would get people on 3 charges in one time, bam, and that was 3 different charges. So you could get caught once for drugs and go to jail for life. It was really unfair. And you know, Van Jones and a lot of these Democrats were trying to get President Obama to do his prison reform, and he wouldn't do it because he was afraid it would make him look weak on crime. You see, Trump does things that every other president wouldn't do because he's not an ideologue. You know, Bush was a conservative, so he had to stick to the conservative line. Obama was a liberal. He had to stick to the liberal line. But liberals are afraid to look weak on crime sometimes. You know, they pick their battles wisely. He picked on abortion and gay marriage and all that he fought hard for. But with criminal justice, he didn't want to look weak. So he would not sign this criminal reform bill that Trump signed because Trump's not an ideologue. Kim Kardashian, early in his presidency, said, listen, there's a woman, I believe I got her name here, Alice Marie Johnson. Listen, she's 63 years old. She's been in jail since she's in her 20s for 1 drug offense because these maximum life sentences for drug offenses, and it was a large quantity, and she's totally reformed. She teaches Bible classes, and Trump was like, wow, that don't make sense. I see he's not an ideologue. He just common sense. That's why blue-collar guys love this guy. It's like, that don't make sense. He gave her clemency. She was freed. She was so happy after she ran and hugged her family. She went and hugged President Trump and said, I thank you. And then he realized, wow, there's a problem with our criminal justice system, and it's unfairly targeting young blacks, putting them away for life. So he changed this, and you can Google it and get all the details. There's more details of that, and it's just the first step. He's got to take it more further, and he said he will. But it allowed the release of, I think it was like 200,000 young black African Americans in this country from prison. Like, it had direct impact on the African American community. Another direct impact, Ronald Reagan once said, a high tide lifts everybody's boat. Whether your boat's a yacht or your boat's a little dinghy, everybody's going to raise. So if the economy's good, we don't have to put the rich against poor and black against white. Just make America great, make our economy great, and if everything's booming, everybody will have jobs. And I'm telling you, as a blue-collar guy my whole life, I've never seen so many jobs. Everybody I talk to is like, hey, you know anybody looking for a job, we're hiring. My boss said years ago, before Trump was president, and he's not even a Trump supporter, but he had to admit this. He goes, yeah, before Trump was president, I had to put a sign on the door, not hiring, because I get 2 or 3 highly qualified guys walking through that door looking for a job. He goes, now we've been short 3 guys for 6 months. We can't hire them, and it's a good paying blue-collar job, but there's so many jobs. And unemployment, if you're not paying attention, just went down to a 50-year low the other day. It's 3.5% unemployment. Black unemployment is the lowest in the history of America. More black men are working today than ever in the history of men. Thousands and tens of thousands of black families got out of poverty in the last few years. Millions of them were able to get off of food stamps in the last couple of years. So they're seeing a positive impact on their lives. You know, the Democrats like to portray them as victims, and we got to help them. They can't help themselves. And Republicans are, no. They're Americans. They're hard workers. Let's provide them opportunity. And speaking of opportunity, it was very interesting to watch Elizabeth Warren getting shouted down the other day. by a group of black moms shouting, "We want school choice now, school choice now." And what's that about is they realize the Republicans for years have been trying to allow school choice, to give each child in a poor black community a voucher, saying you could take this voucher and pay for any school. If you want to stay in your school, fine. If you want to go to a nice public school in a nice rich white area, you can go there. If you want to go to a private school, a Catholic school, a Baptist school, whatever school you want to go to, if money's the only thing holding you back, here, take the money and go. The Democrats have fought this tooth and nail, and when Republicans allow this, you see African American test scores go up, dropout rates go down, and then when Democrats come in and take over again, because it goes back and forth. You have the Democrat mayor, then a Republican mayor, governor, it goes back and forth. But every time the Democrats come in, they get rid of school choice, and the reverse happens. You get negative effects on the black community. So I believe that black woman I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So a black woman goes up to Elizabeth Warren and says, "How come you can send your child to a private school, but I can't?" I think that woman was red-pilled. I think she's seeing the truth. Because then she said, the only thing Democrats are interested in is killing black babies in the womb. They're not interested in sending black babies to a good school when they grow up. Whoa, that woman definitely was red-pilled. But anyway, getting back to Elizabeth Warren, when she said to Elizabeth Warren, "How come you get to send your child to a private school, but I don't?" Elizabeth Warren lied and said, "Oh no, my kid went to public school." And it was easily researched that she lied, and she's a liar. If you don't know about Elizabeth Warren, she said she went to Harvard by saying she was a minority, or she was a Harvard professor making like $400,000 a year, and it may or may not have helped her. I'm sure it helped her that she was a minority, and her minority status was she was an Indian. And then President Trump famously challenged her to take a DNA test and said, "If you're a Native American, I'll give you like $10 million. And so she took the test, and she was like 1,000. The Native American community was so mad she had to go to different Cherokee tribes and apologize. So she's a liar. That's why Trump calls her Pocahontas, and the media thinks that's so mean, but he's just calling her out. That's the way of him calling her out. But so the African American community was saying, "Wait a minute. Why wouldn't you allow my child to go to a good school and have an opportunity? Do you want to keep us down? Do you want us to depend on you for welfare? Do you want us to depend on you for food stamps?" Yes, they want you to be dependent. They don't want you to be successful, because if you're successful, you'll vote Republican. So that's another reason. Also, United Church of God in Christ. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure my notes are right. I'm getting ahead of myself. United Church of God in Christ recently came out publicly and stated they want their members to vote pro-life. And if you're voting pro-life, that means you're voting Republican. The United Church of God in Christ is the largest African American Protestant church in America. And the leaders said they realized that Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, set out to eliminate the black race. And it's no wonder 90% of Planned Parenthood clinics are in black communities. Blacks make up less than 20% of the population and have over 40% of the abortions because they're targeted. In New York City every year, more black babies are aborted than born. The black community in this country is waking up. They're opening their eyes, and they see Trump is fighting Planned Parenthood. Trump is trying to end abortion. Trump is the most pro-life president we've ever had. So their eyes are being opened. And I believe the reason is because of social media, alternative news. No longer can CNN make the narrative and stick to it and just repeat it till everybody is mind numb and believing what CNN says. You can Google stuff. It's like the big argument when you say, the Republicans freed the slaves, the Republicans, were the ones that brought civil rights to being. The Democrats started the Ku Klux Klan. The Democrats filibustered every civil rights law in the 60s. And they go, yeah, that was then, this is now. All those racist Democrats became Republicans. And most African Americans just accepted that lie. But now you can Google every member of Congress that voted against the civil rights laws in the 60s, and they stayed Democrats all the way till they died in the 80s, 90s. And in Robert Byrd's case, a former Grand Wizard of the KKK, who was the Democrat majority leader in the 90s, 80s or 90s, he stayed until 2010 a Democrat senator until he died. So, you know, my African American friends aren't as stupid as the Democrat Party thinks they are. You know, they just needed access to the truth. And now with the internet, we all have access to the truth. So, I believe not only is he going to get more African American votes than any Republican in recent history, I believe he's going to get the majority, over 50%. That's my call, you know. We'll see in a year. Go back to this and you can see if I was right or I was wrong. But the Democrats have been seen for who they are. They're liars. And they're the true racists. So God bless, and you know, apologize to my Blue Catholic subscribers who hate when I talk politics. I had a few tell me that when I used to have comments up. They're like, please stay away from politics. But if you do enjoy this, share it with your friends during the holidays, because I'm sure politics are going to come up around the table, just like religion. And most people say they don't want to talk religion and politics because they don't want to argue. But I found you can talk religion and politics, but don't argue. You know, whoever gets mad loses the debate. So just present the facts. You know, present the facts in a loving way. If it starts an argument, change the subject. You don't want to argue with family, especially around the holidays. So Merry Christmas. God bless.